Hello and welcome along to today's Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, with Shane Brophy, Everton Nina Guardian sports editor. Shane, we've had a big old week of it, as always seems to be the case around here. Obviously, Tipperary have appointed a backroom team. We'll come to that shortly. Huge amount of action going on in the club championships as well. But I suppose the best place to start off is the backroom team that Liam Cahill has announced. And I suppose Paddy Maher, obviously Michael Beavens was one that we always knew was going to be in there, and that was announced immediately. But six-time All-Star Paddy Maher is part of the setup. Lockmore Castellini's Declan Laughlin's in there, and Clonoulty Rossmore's TJ Ryan. So we now know the makeup of the backroom team for Liam Cahill. Any surprises there from your point of view, or do you see all four divisions covered? And that's probably
I'm one of those that doesn't get bogged down by having the representative of each division. I know maybe it's I suppose a manager likes to do it politically. It sort of wards off any potential thing. I couldn't give a damn, really. Like, if the four best people are from the south or the west or the mid, I don't really care. Like, so, but look, I know it's political in Tipp, so look, he has that base covered. No, I think it's a very strong management team, and I suppose the fact that he put it together so quick, I think that says a lot for the standing of Liam Cahill and Michael Beavens. That I'm no surprised TJ Ryan his stay in there was like TJ was with him at minor and under 20 and 21 level, so you think he's a close confidant of Liam, so like that's a good one. We know Declan Laughlin with Lockmore was an excellent manager there. He's doing a brilliant job with Clough-Balacalla and Laois at the moment. They're going for 3 in a row in Laois this year, got to a Leinster club final last year. So I did think for a number of years, like how is Declan not being involved with the Tipperary team either at minor, under 20 or senior level? So he's in there now, and of course I suppose Pádraig Maher in there. I think in some ways I'd say it's probably something Paddy still has an itch to scratch. He probably didn't get to leave the inter-county scene on his own terms with the neck problem. So I suppose the next best thing is probably getting involved with the senior management. And look, I think he's a lot to offer. I think he's too big a character. I know the one thing people might have thought is him being involved is he knows too many of the players. He played with them he probably trained with them up to last December. I suppose he's doing the early training sessions maybe, or if he did any of them. But I think he's too big a character for that to be a problem. Because like he's arguably one of the biggest Tipperary names of all time. So like whether he played with them or not, it shouldn't really come into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like he's one of these players who seem to prepare to the highest possible standards, and that's something that you want rubbing off on other players, that if he's seeing that lads aren't preparing the way they should be, he can go over and say, well, look, as recent as a couple of years ago, if you want to be getting this level of performance out of yourself, this is what you need to be doing. I don't see a massive downside to it, because he's always seemed to be a player who performed as honest as the day is long, and that's what you want in the dressing room too, honesty.
And if you're Cahill or Beavens and you want to maybe assess the player before you put the panel together, like who perfect would be to understand him? The Pádraig might say, okay, if you go this guy needs the carrot approach, well maybe a different other guy needs the stick approach, like you did that sort of, or maybe that sort of a way. Like it's handy to have that sort of continuity, but in insider knowledge of maybe if you're making an assessment on who's going to be in, however big the panel is going to be when they put it together.
Yeah, and also he probably knows a lot of these players are like in player meetings, when it's away from management, who's got the right sort of character there. He's also marked probably, a huge amount of these players, whether it's in county championships or in club championships over the last number of years. He knows where the strengths and weaknesses are of a lot of these players, you'd imagine. And like the Declan Laughlin one is interesting because he's been with Clough-Balacalla and did very well getting to a Leinster final. Now, I know they blew up that day against Ballyhale Shamrocks, but sometimes Ballyhale do that to teams. But just the fact that he's seen it and done it both locally and outside the county, I think that's no harm at all, because it adds to your experience. And, they say that about, going travelling in life, it only adds to your experience. So I think all in all, you'd have to be very happy with that backroom team.
I think it's that the fact that it was done pretty quickly, like it was all done and announced before the county championship matches last weekend. So I suppose if any of them were seen at it, you knew why they were there. Like, so like, that was great too. And I think he was on the radio on Monday night and he said that Tommy Ryan will be doing the S&C, but he's been with Liam all the way and with Tipp and in with Waterford too. And like, I'm sure we saw the shape Waterford were in for most of this year. Like the last few years, they were in terrific shape. I think the only issue this year was probably they were nearly overtrained, I'd say, in the championship. It wasn't that they were nearly overfit. Really, they had no spark when those Munster Championship games were moving along.
Yeah, a couple of comments here from River Power. Is Jack Delaney sticking his hand up? We'll come to Tumivara a little bit down the line. Also, Clough had never won a game in the Leinster Championship before Laffin came along. And I remember that day that they did a great win over Kilmacud Crokes. They really kind of put out a sign that they were coming. So that's what's happening with Tipperary. Obviously, we'll be talking more about players who will be, I suppose, in Liam Cahill's thinking. But we might as well mention Brian Cody. He stepped away after 24 years in charge. Were you surprised by it? There were an awful lot of murmurings after the All-Ireland.
Not particularly. I suppose the rumour mill was as loud as it's ever been regarding Cody and leaving, so you probably knew that this is going to be it. But the timing of it was strange. It was like Saturday of an All-Ireland, as if to say, the All-Ireland football is on. This we'll just get the news out there. It'll be, I wouldn't say buried, but it'll be overshadowed by the football final. I'm sure actually it was as big, if not bigger. Like, it was like, Jesus, like he's a generational manager. He's been there as long as any of us have been watching hurling and covering hurling. And it's going to be so strange next year, and he's not on that sideline. And I think he's going to be such a huge loss because, like, there's no doubt about it. He ruled Nolan Park with an iron fist in terms of that training ground. Like, and I'm interested in, like, no matter who gets the job, be interesting to see how the how would you say the culture down there. It's not going to be the same. Players are going to maybe, what would you say, maybe training, or the standard is going to drop. You just know it is. I was just interested in how does it affect their overall performance. Was the same culture maybe being at training an hour before it's due to start, and maybe being in fear of the coach? It's just not going to be there, and that's whether Shefflin or Eddie Brennan or Michael Fennelly or Ling or whoever gets it. It's just going to be fascinating to see how this evolves over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of players that are, well, not an awful lot, but there's a lot of good young players with Kilkenny, but there's plenty of players that are hitting 30 or, maybe heading towards the twilight of careers. Killian Buckley probably didn't see game time in the final. He's probably, one of these ones that you might ask, will he be there next year? Richie Hogan, the same. Like, they're all good players, but you just wonder, Wally Walsh, maybe another year or so, TJ Reid, of course. And the other thing about Kilkenny is they do have good young players, but it was the experienced lads who played well for them in the final more than anything else. So if you're saying goodbye to one or two of those lads who know the standards for donkey's years, I think that's where, in some ways, I look at it and think that might have been that, chance for this Kilkenny team and even those young lads to win an All-Ireland. Yeah. It mightn't necessarily come around next year.
No, definitely not. And that's why I thought it was surprised that maybe would Cody not have just hung around maybe one more year, and maybe he thought maybe it's just the Limerick are probably just too far ahead. And there's the likelihood we've seen, as good as TJ was in the All-Ireland final, there has been signs of slippage this year, and that's only going to happen again next year. There's no, it's just human nature. Like, he's getting older, so. Or was this their chance this year? A guy would thought that Derek Ling would be the obvious candidate. Like, he's been with the under-20s. He knows the last 2 years who the next level of talent there are that needs to be brought through. Look, probably not Kilkenny winning an All-Ireland next year could be a long shot, but like, I think in terms of maybe somebody who's cut from the same cloth as Cody, he was a tough son of a gun in the middle of the field. He was nearly his midfield enforcer there, a lot like Andy Comerford was at the very start, and Michael Fennelly was for a few years. So I would have thought, as a natural fit, I think Derek Ling looks to be the man. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Michael Fennelly finished with Offaly. You could see Michael Fennelly in maybe as his right-hand man in Kilkenny.
Yeah, I mean, the options certainly are there. People have, of course, kind of thought straight away Henry Shefflin, but then the optics of leaving a team after just one season to come back home, people would understand it, but I don't know, just gut instinct doesn't feel like that's too likely to happen. I think Eddie Brennan has already distanced himself from it. There's actually a lot of jobs open in both codes at the moment, which I found quite interesting. The other thing, like Derek Ling obviously won the under-20 All-Ireland Championship this year, And that was a brilliant achievement because there's no obvious stars in that team. Without doubt, they'll get players from that team that will come and play in the senior, but there's no like whirlwind stars. I know Billy Drennan looks quite good.
Yeah, I know I think he'll make it. He has everything. Like, so yes.
Yeah, so there are players like that do look quite good, but at the same time, I think I was at a Kilkenny wedding over the weekend, and a couple of discussions were, you did beat a Galway team that didn't have Tiernan Killeen or Gavin Lee, beating a Wexford team that didn't have Oisín Pepper, All-Ireland final, beating a team that didn't have Cathal O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kilkenny might have won the games anyway, but the point is, it was a great achievement. But there is a small asterisk there. I mean, it's the same with Kerry not winning under 20 football All-Irelands those few years without Sean O'Shea and David Clifford. There's asterisks there.
Yeah, a small one, but I still think winning the All-Ireland would have given maybe that bunch of players an extra pep and there's a bit more confidence going into a senior setup over the next couple of years. So I think it'll have done a lot of them no harm at all. Like, so no, like it's gonna be fascinating to see how it all falls. Like I thought on Sunday night there was going to be an announcement out of Dublin, but that actually hasn't happened yet. Like, so so that seems to be dragging on a bit. Sure, Matt, he must be gone a good month at this stage. Like, so, and sure, Court Leash hasn't been filled yet. So, and sure, now Offaly's opened up as well. So, yeah, it's a long time since he has had that many of the big jobs open and at the one time.
Yeah,
Sure, Waterford as well.
Liam Cahill appointment could be great to entice Jerome Cahill back, a brilliant player. So we'll see how that pans out. Let's talk about the county championship here and start off in Group 1 where Killerwan McDonough's beat Moycarkey Burriswell and Clonulty Rossmore drew dramatically enough with Nina Éire Óg. So just to start off with the Nina game against Clonulty, Johnny Kelly was saying afterwards that the game lacked intensity for a while. He said it was a bit of a cagey affair. And like what I found interesting is that there was nearly a half an hour of the game gone. Nina had only scored 1-2. Then Jake Morris scored a goal. But geez, in a half hour of hurling to score just 1-2, not great. And I'd say in some ways Clonulty would be kicking themselves.
They will, yeah. No, I was at this game on Sunday. I think it was probably a good point for Nina, but probably one left behind by Clonulty. Like, so, yeah, it's just strange. I thought the first 5 or 10 minutes were really good intensity to it. A lot of blocking in it, like very, very close tackling. And but Clonulty always seemed to find the ability to get the scores a little easier. What was it, 10 points to 1-2 coming up to half time? And this was despite Nina, any time they got into the Clonulty full back line, looked like they could get a goal. Like Ben West soloed about 80 yards for his first goal. Like when Nina got on the ball and took on the Clonulty defence, that the Clonulty they were wide open at times. Like Jake Morris' second goal was sort of 1-on-1. Like, I don't know why you leave a player like that 1-on-1. Like, you're just asking for trouble. And then of course, like, Clonulty keeper Martin Sadlier made 3 brilliant saves in the first half. So like Nina could have been ahead, but like Clonulty were always on the front foot in terms of hurling. They were dominating the ball, and look, they were forcing the frees. Jack Ryan scored 7 out of 8 from frees. Conor Hammersley at full forward was excellent, 5 points in play, really, really good. Danny Slattery as well. I thought Enda Heffernan was busy around the middle of the field. But I suppose into that, you just said something about the Nina team, like following on from the North final, like they just hung in the game, even though like Clonulty were probably on the front foot for a lot of it. They lost Josh Keller and Philip Hickey to injury in the second half, but they just kept clinging there. Jake Morris set up Green Crowney for a goal, and it just continues that theme of Nina from the North final, where there's a bit of toughness in them, that whatever setbacks come, they just keep motoring. And I'd say from that point of view, I think Nina will probably know, look, they were probably like 13 scores to 19. It's just that they were second best, but like to take something from the game in the aftermath, I'd say they were relatively pleased to have taken a draw.
Yeah, like without Barry Heffernan, could you first off explain how they operated without Barry Heffernan? Then they lost Josh Keller and Philip Hickey to injuries as well. So like you're saying, they keep on taking blows, but still found.
Yeah, I know. Conor Hennessy slotted in at centre back, and I say if Dara Quinn had been fit, like Dara Quinn is out with a hamstring problem, I'd say if Dara had been fit, Dara would have been slotted in at centre back. So you're probably going into your number 3 centre back. And I thought Conor Hammersley did pretty well. Like did Dylan Quirk, maybe in the last 10 minutes of the match, Dylan Quirk started to get more involved in the game, got on the ball a little bit more. But I thought Conor Hammersley did pretty well. Nina didn't actually change much of their team that much. Like their full back line was the same. It was just Conor Hennessy moving from some midfield back into centre back, with Josh Keller moving from wing forward into midfield. So it didn't tweak their team a massive amount.
Yeah, Jake Morris just looks in great shape, doesn't he? The speed of him going through, and even the way he set up that third goal, soloing in along the end line, and then the trademark one-handed flick across. I know it probably made its way through a player to get there, but he looks like he's in form, because you were even talking during the North Championship that he was showing leadership.
Yeah, no, he just looks like a guy he looks physically very powerful. Looks like a guy that he's filled out very well now. It looks like he's at the shape where he's going to be for the next 8, 9, 10 years, and he looks ultra confident. Every time he turns onto his strong side, whether it's in front of goal or out in the sideline, you're nearly expecting the ball to go over the bar. He's incredibly accurate, and he finishes very, very well. Like he's very, very cool in front of goal when he gets those goal chances. We've seen with both Tipp and Nina this year. So look, when you have a lethal forward like that, you have half a chance of going very, very deep in the championship. And like throwing Tommy Heffernan had a very good game. Michael Heffernan was good on the freeze. So like if you get those three players heavily on the score sheet in any game, like Nina won't be too far away.
Yeah, and obviously Timmy Hammersley is with Ballyboden now, so Conor playing inside with the 5 points in play, like you said. And I remember last year against Thurles, he played in there and did quite well also. But he's definitely sort of providing that focal point that his brother would have done for years.
Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, they probably needed somebody inside just to do the same job that Timmy did, like drifting out from from forward, going left and right, and he hit. Like there was couple of brilliant points, particularly in the second half, right on the corner flag, like super stuff. And then look at the very end, he had a snapshot that Mark Hughes did very well, just to touch over the bar, could have been the winning goal in the match as well. And like remiss me not to mention Conor McCarthy, brilliant block on James Hammersley deep in injury time to save a certain goal. Like so, like the game, it had its moments. You were there was a lot of periods of the game where very, very little happened. But in fairness, when the match did burst into life, it was a decent game. But I said there was probably just too many troughs in the game to have made it more than just a decent game overall.
Yeah, and just the Kilruane McDonough's victory over by Carkey Burke, 422 to 10 points, total domination. And my Carkey didn't have Reece Shelley in the goals, and Max Hackett went off after 5 minutes. So obviously that doesn't help their cause. But she's Keane Darcy with 3-4. Not a bad little way to announce yourself to the county championship.
Yeah, no. Look, I suppose the win for Kilruane wasn't a huge surprise, but the manner of the defeat for my Carkey was huge. Like you were based on the last 2 years, you were taught that this is a team that's coming, and that they were good. They're going to break their duck sometime. But God, the match was over after 20 minutes. Like they didn't seem to have hit the pitch of the game at all. And like Reece Shelley was missing. Like he's a goalkeeper, but should they lost your goalie and maybe Max Hackett be that much of a reason for such a poor performance? It can't be. But like it's a great win for Kilruane. Like I'd say they would have been frustrated themselves in that North quarter final against Killadangan, where like they were so poor in the first half, fought back brilliantly in the second half to force extra time, and then fell away again. So I'm sure over the last few weeks they were thinking to themselves, lads, if we can get a consistent performance for 60 minutes, particularly starting well, not finding ourselves too far behind, we'll take on a lot of teams. And I still think they have probably 16, 17 players. I think they have a first 15, maybe one or two guys off the bench to be championship contenders. And I'd say just the way they dispose of Mike Carkey suggests like they're in great shape to get to the knockout stages. If they get one win from their last two, they're in a quarter final, you would think. So look, they'll take an awful lot of confidence. I say like Keane Darcy 3-4 inside in the corner forward position. Like he's one of those guys like that. When he doesn't hit form, Kilruane tend to struggle up front, but when he does play well, Kilruane look lightning. So if they can get him firing every day, like they'll be hard to beat.
Yeah, my thought on it would be that generally when they're winning the battle, he gets enough ball put into him, and then he puts the finishing touches because he is a scorer. But like we saw,
there was periods in the Kildangan match. He started in the forward line, but he finished up at half back. And they tried him playing half back last year. So now they've actually set maybe in the last few weeks. Okay, we're going to leave him in the forward line, like come hell or high water, like so. And I do think long term, like he's we've seen him at underage level. If you give him space, maybe drifting out from the corner into the half forward line, he's very, very elusive and he's very accurate as well.
Yeah, like it blows a little bit hot and cold though if they can get that consistency. Because once or twice we've seen from Tipp where he does some really good things, and then he might go quiet other times. Liam Cahill took him off in that was it the under 20 or 21 final in 18 or 19, one or the other. And so he'll probably have to do a bit to convince Liam Cahill. If he can start doing this more regularly, and especially against the more highly rated teams in the Tipp County Championship, then his chances obviously jump up massively. We'll go into Group 2. Thurles Sarsfields beat Borris and God, it was never really in doubt whatsoever. 223 to 114, and then in the other match, Drum and Inch had a handy enough win, 230 to 219 over Tipperary Kenyans. But I think Sars really did kind of shoot out a warning sign to entire county championship that just because Paddy Maher is injured, no longer going to be featuring, they're still favourites from what I can see.
Yeah, they are, but they've suffered a bit of a blow. It was revealed this morning that Ronan Maher is out for 8 weeks with a broken shin. So they'll get to the knockout stages, but like 8 weeks takes you to a county quarter-final, maybe a county semi-final. So like that's if he's not back by then, like he's look, Thurles, like they've the deepest panel, the pool of players in the county, but when you're losing your key players, you'd wonder, Jesus. But I suppose from their point of view, they have the next 2 games. Okay, the Drum and Inch game now is probably going to be very, very tough for them with Ronan. Like they'll probably still be fancied maybe to beat Tipperary in the final game to get through to the knockout stages. But like there's no doubt about it, to just reinforce that when they're on it on their day, particularly up front, Paddy Creed and Dennis Maher, Pa Burke, Aidan McCormack, Dara Stakelum as well. Like they've some serious forwards, and like Billy McCarthy coming off the bench. And I suppose one player that probably flew under the radar in terms of how well he played for Tipp this year and could be a big player next year is Conor Stakelum. He had another massive game now in midfield last weekend. Like so, look, they say that from the 4 or 5 adult teams in that club, like they're not short of talent. Their Premier Intermediate team drew at Ballina at the weekend, so they're in a good place. There's no doubt about it. It was 2-9 to 4 points after 15 minutes. They really hit the ground running, but like Borris definitely didn't help themselves. I said the manner of the 2 goals they conceded, I'd say they would be very, very disappointed with. It was just another flat performance from Borris, the same as against Toomevara, and you'd have to be worried where you like they have so much experience on that sideline and in Shane O'Neill and John Fitzgerald and Michael Beavens. How have they been so flat in 2 games so far?
Yeah, it might just be a case of the new game plan. What's that? It's just not clicking yet.
Yeah, and I suppose that'd be the worry. Like it's like Brendan Maher was he limped off after 15 minutes, but I think they were already. I think they had the 2 goals conceded at that stage. So like that wasn't any the reason for it either. It's just I wouldn't be. I always thought while you were getting in a great management team, I was often wondered, is it the right fit, or if you are getting them in, they probably need more than a couple of games to get up to speed, and it certainly looks that the case at the moment.
Yeah, and I know in some of the challenge games, there was good scores put up, like Coolderry. I know those 8 goals put up, but like
Coolderry is struggling in Offaly at the moment.
And you can't always read into those games. And like look at the power and pace in that Thurles forward line. And Paddy Creedon, you could see him playing for Tipp in the very near future. Dennis Maher is still a pig of an inside forward to have there. And as you said, the Stakelum brothers, just they'll stay going for you all day. But like for Borris, they had great goal chances early on. Conor Kenny soloed through, he got hooked. Then Kevin Maher with the rebound hit the post. Maybe 10 minutes later or something like that, Niall Kenny, he was soloing through. Now there was 3 lads on his tail, threw it up and batted it wide. So there were goal chances for Borris there to get the team going, but it didn't happen. And once it didn't, I don't know what you say, the heads dropped, but certainly Thurles are one of these teams that when they're on top, they really are very good at driving it home.
Yeah, no, there's not about it. It'd be interesting to see whether, like, you can't see Brendan being fit to play against Templederry. So, will they rejig it? I think Jerry Kelly played for a spell at centre back. I think Dan played centre back up to half time. I think Jerry Kelly went back there in the second half. But then, yeah, maybe like say Kevin Maher, are they getting the best out of him? Could he be needed in the middle? He's a good guy to sort of to move the ball around pretty well. Maybe get guys into space. Like Eddie Ryan is not scoring an awful lot apart from frees. James Devaney hasn't kicked on from his club championship campaign a few years ago. So like there's no doubt there's pressure, and like they have a very, very tricky match with Templederry coming up on Sunday week. Like, okay, Templederry lost by 11 points, but they still put up 219. It was just like, and Templederry will think, oh, Bursley are vulnerable here. If we are on our game, like we could potentially sneak this one.
Yeah, a couple of comments in here. This relates back to the earlier point about the Kenny under-20s. They beat under-20s without senior stars. Interesting, Cork won under-20 in 2021 without Shane Barrett, Alan Connolly and Darragh O'Leary. Very bad rule and must change for next year, I agree. Another comment here from CK Streaming. I'll ask you about the first part, Shane. The second part would be unfair to put you on the spot. But a lot of poor quality games over the weekend in the top 3 grades. I know Shane isn't going to admit it, but if Laura keep everyone fit, they'll walk the intermediate. But just the first part, would you agree with that comment that there was a lot of poor quality games?
Well, I'd say when you're in the senior grade, I think you had 7 draws out of the 24 matches, which in percentage is a lot. Like,
well, it's 4 of 8 actually in the top level.
You can see, yeah. Like, okay, maybe. Okay. Generally, championships are slow to start. Like, there's no doubt about it. And I thought, like, some of the crowds at Semple Stadium were small enough. Like, I just think generally it takes a bit of time to warm up, and like it's the first round. Maybe there's a bit of caginess in some of the affairs. I definitely think from round 2 and round 3, like there's going to be an awful lot more at stake. So I'd be expecting probably the quality of games definitely to lift as the championship goes on. It was like Killadang and Lockmore on Friday night. It was a draw, but I thought it was a poor. From what we saw from the last 2 years, it wasn't up to the same level. But that's not. Look, you're not going to get good games early. I still think as the championship comes on, we'll get some good. I think we'll get a lot of good contests, and hopefully the quality of the fair will improve as well. Like we got some. What I'd say 7 draws out of 24 games last year, or was it, 7. Oh, I'm thinking 7 out of 24, not bad.
When you look at it, actually, we're adding up here the injuries to Ronan Maher, Brendan Maher, Barry Heflin. I know that was in the North Championship.
And that was a freak as well.
Yeah, but with the amount of games and the level of competition, and in previous years where you might have had like divisions and a lot of lopsided games before you get to the latter stages of competition, there's a lot of even games here. Hence 4 draws out of 8 senior matches. You're going to have an awful lot of injuries because I'd say there'll be so many battles of attrition. So actually, probably having that big panel is probably you might find your winner from the big panels.
Oh yeah, I know you definitely need that. There's no doubt about it. The likes of Turles probably are better able to cope. Nina as well would have a deep panel. Drum and Inch would have a good panel as well. So, like Boris Lee probably, I suppose the fact that Boris or junior team are still in the championship probably not as inclined to pull players off that yet, and they probably don't want to break it up yet. And like so, that's always the thing. I suppose the deeper you go into a championship and your club's second team is still in it, like when do you make the call to start to break up your second team and maybe deprive them of maybe silverware as well? Like so, like all these, there's loads of different things that come into it as well.
Yeah, noses can be put out of joint with that sort of stuff. I'd say the likes of Kieran Maher might start the next day. He came on and made a good impact for Burrs with 14 wides and lots of errors, but brilliant performance by Sars. The other game in the group, 230 to Drum, 219 to Templederry Kenyans. Seamus Callanan is on fire with 1-4, so he's clearly back up to speed after his hand injury earlier in the year. Yeah,
I know. Good win for Drum. Now I thought this potentially was a banana skin game for them after the mid-final loss, but look, they rebounded well. They really hit the ground running against Templederry, and like we're up, was it 116 to 2-6 at halftime. Templederry threatened to come back a couple of times, but Drum just seemed to be more slick. I said, not just Seamus Callanan, but Tommy Nolan. Good to see Tommy Nolan having he's had a couple of good games in the last few weeks. Like he's underage, and I thought he was a very, very elusive forward. So he's going well. Johnny Ryan is back playing. Podge Campion at centre back looks like he could be one of those that we'd be pushing on the door to get into a senior squad. Like, I thought he was very, very good at underage level. It was a 19 and 20, I think, underage. So a bit of size to him as well, bit of physicality. So be interesting to see how he pushes on. But look, good win for Drum. Potentially now after, like, they're going into play Sarsfields. Now, I'd say they'll have a real good go at Sarsfields. I know Sarsfields bet them comfortably enough last year. I think now that Ronan Maher's missing, Drum, I think, God, there's a chance here maybe to get the win and get ourselves into the knockout stages before the Bursley match. So, and maybe not have that local derby as maybe a winner takes all game in the last round, which on paper it looks like if form holds, Thurles beat Drum and Borrisoleigh beat Tipperary, you're looking at a Drum v Borrisoleigh knockout game in the third round.
Yeah,
but,
tasty one.
But there's a lot of hurling to happen on that weekend. There's like, I wouldn't rule out Drum or Tipperary maybe getting some kind of result in their games.
Yeah, and I noticed, like, with he obviously had a great year with the under-20s as captain, but John Campion scoring 4 points from midfield as well. So he's keeping his form, and I'd say
I'd say he has to be in there next year. He just has,
yeah,
he has all the ingredients of a Liam Cahill player. Great engine, can score, gets up and down the field, bit of good leadership as well. So if his form holds, I can't not see him being in there next year.
Yeah, the sort of player who doesn't seem to back down when he's on the field, which, you can never have too many of that. So for Drum, that's a good recovery after losing the mid-final to the Brackens. And Tipperary, they're probably under a small bit of pressure now, losing by 11 here, heavy loss to Nina. So they'll be looking for a much better performance against Borrisoleigh. But I suppose the way Burris are playing just now, maybe they'll feel like they have. But
it's a big step up this year for Tipperary. Like, you're probably to get the cream of the crop. They were poor against Nina. I think from their point of view, I think they definitely did improve against. Look, you say, how can you improve when you lose by 11? I think their performance overall was better. So they'll be thinking if they can find another level against Borrisoleigh, it'll give them a chance, which is what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'll move on to Group 3 now. So Mullinahone 215, Toomevara 312. So another one of these draws, but we can't but talk about the Owen Kelly penalty. That it did look like it was wide. It hit the white flag, the point flag, and it was given as a goal anyway. And to be fair to Toom, they went out then went down the other end and levelled it.
Yeah.
But geez, it's poor now to be missing that from the umpire, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember watching the feed on Saturday night, and it was inconclusive. I couldn't say for sure. I was looking at the flag, and you could say, okay, it definitely hit the flag, but then the net moved shortly after to say, God, maybe there was a hole in the net. Like, so, but I'd say that highly likelihood is that ball was wide, and like there's no way that maybe the referee should have actually had the best position. It was like the umpire was side on, so he couldn't be sure. And then the other umpire was behind the net, so neither umpire had a perfect view of that post. Like, so,
and then the referee tends to stand in line with the 21, so because they're watching to see if the player is stepping over the line. So really, you'd think standing behind him in some ways would be a better spot, but you can't because you have to watch the steps.
Yeah. So like it's look. It looked like I can't say conclusively whether it was right or wrong, but like the footage is not. It probably needs one of that. It needs probably one of those virtual reality things to take the footage and to get exactly show where the ball. It looks like it went wide, like so. And the strange thing about it for me was that Owen Kelly didn't initially argue the call, but then when the green flag went up, he went into the net, then defending. Oh, that was definitely in. So, and so like it was. I suppose look from Toomevara's point of view, look, they can be frustrated by that, but look, relieved in one way that they got a draw out of it. But like they'll be frustrated that like they were control of that match up until the 55th minute. Then Owen Kelly comes on, and their whole defence seems to break down as if the arrival of Owen absolutely freaked them out. Was he comes on, he scores a free, he's involved with the goal for Martin Keogh, and then they end up winning a penalty and he sticks it away. So from Toomevara's point of view, to be very frustrated that maybe the arrival of one player upset their defence like that. Look, they showed great courage then to come back to get the equalising score. No, Mullinahone will be probably frustrated that where did the referee find all this extra injury time to get Toom the equaliser. But look, I suppose if Mullinahone had won with that controversial goal, Mullinahone or Toon be very, very stung over it. But I definitely think from Toon's point of view, disappointing. Like after last year losing to Mullinahone so heavily, and like first half, 3 goals in the first half, looked very, very good. Jack Delaney got 2 of them. He played very well. Kevin McCarthy got 4 points from play. He's potentially maybe he's on a tip radar system as well. But it shows you like Mullinahone building a lovely panel. Like Owen O'Dwyer, corner forward, was very, very good. Mikey O'Dwyer had a good second half. So probably Mullinahone, like both teams will probably fancy their chances of a win in this. So they'll probably feel okay. It's a point dropped on both sides. But like in a group where Upper Church and Ban had a big win over Holy Cross, like you're thinking, if Upper Church continued that form, you're thinking maybe one of Mullinahone and 2 more make it. So, but like it's like a lot of the groups very, very even.
Yeah, Mikey O'Shea scored some great points, especially at the start of the game. And after a year playing with the inter-county footballers and getting used to that condition, I'm wondering, would he all of a sudden come into Liam Cahill's thinking also, like Jack Delaney, we were asked about it at the start of the show here, set up 1 goal, scored 2 in the first half. So obviously very impressive from him. And Mark McCarthy being back, setting up a goal and getting on the score sheet himself as well. So there's a few players there again that Liam Cahill might be keeping an eye on.
Oh, definitely. Like I'm sure he's fought 5 within his manager team. He'll be going very, very well. Like he'll be assessing everybody. Like you say, Mikey O'Shea would have played county minor in 2018. Like he definitely is here with the footballers. He looked stockier in 2020, but he looked a lot slimmer this year with the footballers. So I'm sure he'll be there. See Ned Driver saying it was a goal. Jeez, I don't know. Maybe it was like, but seemingly the next was checked afterwards, and there was no hole in it. So I don't know. Maybe look, the goal stands, and there was a point apiece for each team. So that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, Luke Shanahan was the standout player in Upper Church's win over Holy Cross, 223 to 21 points.
Yeah, he's more of a defender coming from underage. So I suppose for the likes of Upper Church, like they've always had a very, very sound defence. So moving the likes of him into the forward line with the likes of Paddy Green and Paddy Shanahan, like they're building nicely. Like they're supposed to be very frustrated to have maybe won a mid-championship this year after beating Sarsfields. But do you think if they can beat Sarsfields, they can go very, very deep into this championship? Got a good lead up in Holy Cross in half time. Holy Cross came back, got it back to like 2 or 4 points towards the end, but Upper Church finished strongly to win by 7. So a good win, good start for them. I suppose the pity for Holy Cross is if Brian O'Mara was there, how strong would they be? Like he's such a fulcrum of that team at centre back. So if I'm not sure whether he'd be back for the 2nd or 3rd round games, but it'd be great to see him maybe getting a few club games before hopefully getting in with Tipp next year.
Yeah, and in Group 4 then it was 2 draws from 2. Killadangan and Lockmore, you already said it yourself, wasn't the greatest game that you'd ever seen. Like to me in the first half, it just seemed like long range shot after long range shot. And that's grand. It was putting up scores, but it didn't lead to the most exciting game. Brian McGrath and Conor Burns swapped scores late on as it ended up a draw. But Willie Connors back from injury as well is obviously a boost for Killadangan.
Yeah, no, I think it's a, how would you say, I thought it was probably a point lost for Lockmore and a point gain for Killadangan because, like you were saying, coming into it, got John McGrath is missing, Kieran Connolly is missing. They're going to be Lockmore probably going to be more difficulty. Willie Everson was missing through injury as well. But then you look at the flip side for Killadangan, no Decky McGrath, no Dara Friendly. Okay, from the North Championship, then you're losing Sean Hayes, who was probably their best player in the North Championship, and Dan O'Mara was missing too. Like they were really stretched, and it was, as you say, great to see Willie Connors coming back. 2 points to play, look very, very lively. So, but I did think it was like for Killadangan to draw that game. It was probably one of the poorest Killadangan performances I've seen in years. They looked very, very sluggish. Like Paul Flynn was very, very quiet, full forward. Like apart from Brian Malachny, their forward line carried little threat. Joe Gallagher was quiet. He like Ty Gallagher was very good. Alan Flynn centre back always very good, but just it was very bitty performance from Killadangan. And I suppose that'd be the frustrating thing from Lockmore is that Lockmore were the better team and just didn't put them away. Like they'd probably be frustrated with the amount of wides Lockmore hit in the second half. I think it was 8 they hit in the second half when they had the potential maybe to press on to get 3 and 4 ahead and maybe put the game to bed. But look, it's just there's a great rivalry between these two teams. There's so little in it, and as you say, with Brackens and Anacarty drawn in the same group as well, we're effectively into a 2-game shootout between all 4 teams.
Yeah, when I looked at the stats afterwards, Kildangan's backs scored more Kildangan backs scored than from midfield up, which was kind of interesting. 4 out of the 6 forwards didn't score, and neither of the midfielders. So yeah, Éire Óg Anacarty 19 points, JK Brackens 116. Like Brackens, obviously after winning the mid already, they know they're guaranteed a spot no matter how this goes. But they started well. Then Andrew Ormond hit the net, and Éire Óg were always playing catch up. I think they led once.
Yeah, once in about the 46 minutes. Yeah. No, yeah. I wasn't surprised by the outcome here. I did think Brackens would be a little vulnerable after winning that mid-final, as I know they celebrated it well. And I suppose Éire Óg Anacarty would have been eyeing up this game potentially as, look, if we can get off to a winning start here with Lockmore and Kildangan to come, we have a chance of getting through here. So look, Anacarty have got a point. They have Kildangan up next. And if Kildangan are as bitty as they were, as I saw them last weekend, it could be ripe for maybe to be picked off. But I suppose the good thing about this group is like all 4 teams are in play into the last round, which sets it up very, very nicely.
Yeah. Okay. So
you have Lockmore and Brackens then the following week on that. Like it's Sunday week, it's in Semple Stadium, so like that'll be a tasty game too.
Yeah, lots of good games to come. So in the Premier Intermediate Championship, I'll run through the groups and you can give me your thoughts. So St. Mary's beat Newport 123 to 122, so a very tight one there. And a draw between Tracy's and Burgess, 20 points to 214.
Yeah, I suppose Mary's probably good value for the win. Like there were 6, 7, 8 points ahead of Newport for a lot of that game. Just Newport came with a late surge, just left it a little too late. But was we expect James Kennedy was superb for St. Mary's, and I think at centre back very, very good. And I suppose Peter McGarry again, he's probably another one from we saw at under 20 level this year that probably will. I'd say, but I'd be surprised if he's not in with the Tipp seniors next year either. Just maybe for
he's
building down the road
for the 20s.
Has he? Yeah. I couldn't be sure. I wasn't sure he was that young, but okay, the next year with the 20s, probably maybe he could be one of those that could be fast track too. Like because if you're building long term, like and maybe Cal might have seen a bit more of him in the South Division over the years, but he's a great eye for goal. He's very, very direct as well. He's not scared to have a shot. So good win for Mary's. Newport under a bit of pressure now was like you have Sean Tracy's and Burgess through. Tracy's probably the better team in the first half. A couple of goals for Burgess kept them in the game, and then Burgess in the second half managed to get their noses in front before Tracy's fought back to earn a draw. So like that Graham, as I say, that group very finely poised. Like you think to a draw and then a 1-point game. So you have Burgess and Newport up the next day, 2 very, very, very familiar teams, and St. Mary's up against the Tracy's, who would have been familiar with each other for in the last few years as well.
And Group 2, Mines put up 317 against Mine Table 2. He's 16 points. And Ross Gray beat Kildangan's second team 133 to 411. Geez, 133 is some shooting.
It is, yeah. Like Kildangan played 45 minutes of that match with 14 men, so it just puts a lot of that into context. But look, still for Kildangan to score 4-11, 4-12 with 14 men was good going. Shane Gleeson got a hat trick, so I suppose what would you say? It was a moral victory of sorts for Kildangan. But look, Ross Gray seemed to have gone more direct in their play against Kildangan. Like maybe they were overplaying the ball, I think, in their North Championship matches. But if you're scoring 133, it just shows you how potentially good they can be. And like they're probably going to get better as the championship goes on. They play Silver Mines next to, who they played in the North semi-final a few weeks ago, and that went extra time. Like the Mines had a great win over Mine Temple 2. Jason Ford scoring 212, like he's in ridiculous form. But you'd say at the moment, if Mine Temple 2 he had Ducks, they drown. Like they just good message there. I wasn't at the game, so I couldn't quite possibly say, but there's so many injuries. Like, and then Grode O'Connor couldn't play he was named as their sub keeper, and what happens? Their first choice keeper, Paul Maher, gets injured in the first half, and he has to come on and go. Like, and Paul Maher, we all know, was in with the Tipp squad a few years ago. So look, just seems to be a poor situation. I thought Mine Temple too, he with a full squad this year, going well, would have a chance of getting deep into the championship. But look, potentially at the moment, maybe in relegation difficulty. They have Killadangan up next, and you think the loser of that game is probably heading into relegation playoffs. That's a massive game between Killadangan and Boyne coming up on Friday week.
Group 3, Gortnahoe Glengula had a great win over Killinall, 221 to 217. And Turtle Sarsfield's second team drew 117 apiece with Ballina, but that's a great win for Gortnahoe.
Yeah, no, very, very good win. But Killinall were what? Killinall were in control of that game. Were 5-6 points up with inside the last 10 minutes, and just Gortnahoe came with a whirlwind, 1-5 to a point, and to win by 4. So not I suppose it just backs up their continuing growth. Gortnahoe last year got to a quarter final. Killinall would have beaten him last year in a group stage match. It was a nice one to turn them over, and like they're local rivals down there too. So really, really good win. Keane Hayes, very, very good, 8 points, and Fionn Cleary had a big game too. I suppose a frustrating loss for Killinall, considering looked like they were in control of that game going into the last 10 minutes, just to let it slide like that. So they're under pressure now. I think they're playing Ballina next, and Killinall and Ballina had a very, very... King Killinall beat Ballina in the championship last year when they played, and I think Ballina probably feel that they probably maybe left a performance, or maybe left a point behind them against Turtle Sarsfields the last day, or probably would have hoped maybe to gotten a win there. So like any group that has a draw in it, like we saw with Ballina and Turtle Sarsfields, it sets the group up. It more or less guarantees the group goes to the final weekend.
Group 4 then, the Carrick Swans 117 to 19 points, and Cashel King Cormacs against Clonakilty, very low scoring there, 112 to 13 points to Cashel.
Yeah, it's some run Portrue are on. 4 matches they played this year, 4 wins, 3 of them have been 1 point and won by 1 score. Like they're the one team you don't want to be playing going down the home stretch, because they just seem to have great character to not to panic when the game is really in the melting pot. Rowan Mulrooney, big game for them, playing very, very well this year. Sam Madden continues good form. So I suppose from the Swans' point of view, they'd be frustrated that they left an awful lot of scoring chances behind them in the first half, and maybe they should have been further ahead with the win going into play against the win in the second half. But look, they'll feel that in a very tight group like this, you say Cashel with Jar Brown playing very, very well. I suppose did to Clonakilty what they did to them last year as well, where they sort of came very, very late to hit the front and ended up winning a tight game. But look, I think there's going to be very, very little between all these teams. I think this is a group where you could see each of the 4 teams maybe winning a game each. Maybe it'll be very, very tight to see who the 2 teams that will automatically qualify out of the group will be. But I suppose good starts for Portrue and Cashel. They play each other in the next round, and there was a bit of spice between those two when they played in the group stage last year, a couple of red cards. So that could be one of the... I see that's gotten one of the Semple Stadium fixtures for the second round. So that could be one of the games to get into on the weekend after next.
Okay, well, we'll look now at the Intermediate Championship. In Group 1, Kappa White beat Ballyvaken Grange 312 to 18 points, and Moneygall saw off Ballingarry 114 to 112. I'm nearly sure I saw the scoreline at one stage of the Moneygall-Ballingarry game, and Moneygall were miles ahead, but only won by 2 for finish.
Yeah, it's strange. That was on Sunday? I can't remember. Yeah, there was definitely a breeze, and there was a strong breeze on Sunday. So obviously maybe Moneygall had it in the first half, and Ballingarry came back. Bit of a controversial ending. Ballingarry had got a goal to go ahead in injury time, and then Moneygall were awarded a penalty in injury time, and Sean Kennelly stuck it away, and I suppose to got the narrow win. And I suppose over Ballingarry, who finished with 13 men as well. So look, for Moneygall had lost that game, having had the 2-man advantage, that would have been a sore one. And now you have Ballingarry, I'm not sure whether there were 2 straight reds or double yellows, but if they're 2 straight reds, like they're into the next round, maybe down 2 players, depending on suspensions. But like I'm seeing an awful lot of guys no different in inter-county. An awful lot of guys are getting straight red cards, but they are playing in their next games. So obviously there's a lot of successful appeals going in. So I'm sure maybe Ballingarry will probably be looking at that road as well.
Yeah, Group 2 then, Knockavilla Kickhams continue to, despite losing so many players a couple of years ago, continue to do well. They beat Ballynahinch 220 to 216, and Skeheenarinky beat Borris-O'Kane 123 to 215. So, that is impressive again from Knockavilla.
It is, yeah. I think it was probably more convincing than the scoreline suggests. Ballynahinch got a late goal to put a bit of glass on it, but I think the big result in that group was Skeheenarinky beating Borris-O'Kane. Like I would have had Borris at the start of the year being good contenders, particularly while their panel might be tight, some very, very good scoring forwards, but like Gary Ryan, Philip Austin, Mike Kelly, Mike Keenan, but like Conor Ryan going to America for the summers really hit them hard. Like he was missed in the North semi-final against Borris-O'Kane and missed again in this one. But like great credit to Skeheenarinky, first year up from Junior A, and to take a scalp like that now is big for them, and like they'll fancy their chances getting out of the group. I think they will. They've Kickhams up next. I think maybe Kickhams could be a step too far, but like I think Skeheenarinky was thinking if we can beat Ballynahinch in round 3, we should get to the knockout stages, and like for them and their first year up from junior would be a great year for them.
Yeah, Group 3 then, Shannon Rovers drew with Kilsheelan and Kilcash 17 points to 211. And Drum's second team beat Arravale Rovers by 20 points to 114. I'll just go through Group 4 as well. Golden Kilfeacle beat Borlahan Douala 22 points to 114. And your own Laura, had a great win over Carrickdavins 323 to 114. So obviously you're involved with Laura. You're not going to go into too much, but you might tell us who did the scoring even.
Yeah, no, look, it was a comfortable win. Like I know the Davins were missing maybe a couple of key players through injury and unavailability. Probably it just took away their competitiveness. But look, in fairness, our lads were professional in what they did. Like they went out early, 3 goals in the first 15 minutes, all from Colin Fogarty. He's playing very, very well. So look, the match was comfortably enough at half time. In fairness to Davins, like they dug in well in the second half, won the second half by a point. So, look, I'm sure that gives them something to take into the second round against Boherla and Golden. Great win for Golden now. Laura playing them next up. So, I know Golden have been sort of knocking around those knockout stages for the last few years. So, I think they're a seasoned team at this level. So, I'd be expecting a serious challenge from Golden for Laura in the next round. Going back to Group 3, great draw for Shannon Rovers. Now I would have said that would have been a tough ask for them now to beat Kilsheelan. Okay, they didn't, but to draw to hold Kilsheelan to 211, good going. Okay, Mark Keogh went off injured after 20 minutes. I suppose that probably didn't help Kilsheelan's cause. Bill Maher didn't play either. So, but look, I'm sure Shannon Rovers would have taken that result off at the start of the group. It means that they're in play in a group with Arravale Rovers and Drummoninch to maybe get to a quarter final. So, like I'd say, Drummoninch probably Rovers beforehand would have thought if we get anything from the Drum game or from the Kilsheelan game, they'd be targeting Drum and Arravale. So, taking a point going into their next 2 games, they'll be in a good place maybe to get to a knockout stage.
I might run through some of the senior football championship fixtures coming this weekend. But is there anything else you want to touch on with the hurling?
No, I just thought it was interesting that the amount of draws that were in it. Okay, I think some of the Fed probably didn't get something exciting fair, but I think that's going to come. Look, it's still early days. Look, a lot of some maybe key players still to come back, and a lot of clubs like with injury, maybe a few guys still underwear back from America. See, like Billy Seymour landed back from America last week, and you could see his play in the Killadang how off the pace he was. So look, we just need to give guys. There's going to be guys coming back from America and people expecting them to hit the ground running. It's not going to happen, but I would expect maybe the quality of play and quality of games definitely to improve over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So the fixtures in the Senior Football Championship this weekend: Group 1, Care against Upper Church Strumban, Clonmel Commercials against Killinall. Group 3, then Aherlow against McCarthy Burris, Lockmore against Ardfinnan. Group 4, Arravale Rovers against JK Brackens. Also in the Senior 2 on Sunday Senior Championship Group 2 on Sunday, Rockwell Rovers against Drummoninch, Mile Rovers against Kilsheelan and Kilcash, and the other Group 4 game is also on Sunday, Ballypreen against Aero Gannacarty. So lots going on, and we'll have loads to touch on again next week. So I think that's it for the show today. My thanks to Shane as ever, and we'll be back again next week. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian.
Yep.